soon as I step through this door, the security for Air Force One are in my hands. Getting prepared, calling the airfield, making sure that we have adequate security, and then making sure we have all the equipment and guns that we need to have on each mission.
In just a few hours, the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump, will be boarding Air Force One on an undisclosed mission. The Ravens, an elite security force, ensure the President's safety.
It's nonstop adrenaline. No matter where we fly in the world, just making sure that Air Force One, the President, and the crew are fully secured and our responsibility.
With an 8-mile no-fly zone in place, the presidential helicopter, Marine One, approaches Joint Base Andrews, home to Air Force One. The reason for this high degree of security? Air Force One is America's airborne command center. Literally, the flying White House. As the most important plane on the planet, Air Force One carries American presidents to some of the most dangerous places on Earth. But after 30 years of missions across the world, this plane will soon be retired with honors. Taking her place will be a new state-of-the-art 747 jumbo jet. But to become Air Force One, she will need to undergo a dramatic metamorphosis.
Air Force One serves as a command center because we have so much military equipment and other things on, equipment that I don't even talk about. But the new Air Force One has absolutely finer systems, state-of-the-art.
To elevate the new 747 to the highest of military standards, technicians have to integrate high-tech communications and military defense systems. And at the same time, recast the plane's interior, enveloping it in VIP luxury.
1, 2, 3.
National Geographic has been granted unprecedented access to film this highly sensitive military makeover, revealing just what it will take to make the new Air Force One a flying fortress. Beneath the massive hangar at Joint Base Andrews are 2 Air Force One aircraft. This ensures the President always has a spare. Today, the crew battles to keep both planes in tip-top condition.
It's a 30-year-old aircraft that we're trying to make look brand new every day. Some of the problems we found with getting parts repaired, the vendors who repair them are moving on. It is essentially like a classic car. Except, I believe we take better pride in it.
For Alex, Air Force One's chief pilot, the cockpit's analog instruments present their own unique challenges.
So we're having a tough time getting the parts that we need to continue operating at the level of service that we do. It's very exciting for the next Air Force One to come online. It's an opportunity for our team to take that level of service that we provide in the Flying White House and ensure that exists for another 2 to 3 decades.
With security in place, the plane moves to the boarding area. As the President's helicopter approaches, everyone prepares for what's commonly called the show. The presidential walk from Marine One to Air Force One. It's been iconic for over 30 years.
That walk was made famous by President Reagan. He's the one that really started the choreography of the show.
For Reagan's theatrical entrance, he ordered the helicopter's engines to be shut down and silent to keep the public's focus on the presidential boarding of Air Force One.
The security of the president rests upon the precision of the show. So as the president's walking towards the airplane, the pilots, the navigators, we're listening to Secret Service radios to get all the cues of when we need to get the airplane started and get this Flying White House moving.
We'll get the back taxi on runway 1 left to Sierra for a 1 right departure.
The first time I came on to Air Force One was a big moment, frankly, in my life, because over the years it has meant so much. It's so important as a symbol of power and strength, the symbol of the presidency. It's a magnificent plane. It's something that's just very, very special.
Once the president sets foot on board the airplane, that's our cue to start the engines on the right side of the airplane. And once we make sure that everyone's on board, then we'll start the left side of the airplane and we'll get moving for the president.
Are we heading to 2?
We're heading to 2 now on takeoff. We do have takeoff clearance. We're going to do the 180 to the right-hand side.
With the president on board, every second counts. The swift and safe passage of the president depends on the crew.
B1, rotate.
Over the past 3 decades, this legendary jet has continually traveled the globe and even embarked on dangerous missions to war zones.
It was interesting to see the Baghdad silhouetted on the sunset.
In November 2003, at the height of the Iraq War, the responsibility of transporting President George W. Bush to war-torn Baghdad fell to Air Force One.
By the time we circled in and landed, it was dark.
To avoid becoming a terrorist target, the crew hid Air Force One's identity with a fake call sign. This enabled it to sneak in and land unannounced in a combat zone.
It was a very dramatic moment.
This covert mission was a success, and President Bush met with the troops in secret to celebrate Thanksgiving. During Barack Obama's presidency, the Air Force decided to replace the aging aircraft. Boeing proposed building 2 specially designed next-generation Air Force One planes based on the 747-8 here in the world's largest factory building just outside Seattle. But when President Donald Trump took office in 2017, he changed course.
The price was too high, and the plane was just about ordered. And I heard about it, and I said, cancel the order. And they said, why? I said, because they paid too much.
6 months later, President Trump was briefed that after the bankruptcy of a Russian airline, Boeing had 2 unused 747-8 planes lying in California's Mojave Desert.
And I bought the 2 planes. And actually got a little more plane for the dollar, not less plane. It's not like, gee whiz, we left things off. We got more plane for the money. So I was happy about that.
Against the stark backdrop of the Mojave Desert rises the future Air Force One. And National Geographic has special access to document its metamorphosis. Compared to the existing Air Force One, this epic 747-8 is a huge technological leap forward. At 250 feet, it is the longest passenger plane on the planet. Its massively extended upper deck gives the plane over 20% more floor space. The interior is bigger than an NBA basketball court. Its wide wings with revolutionary carbon fiber, saber-shaped wingtips angle at 37.5 degrees. This new shape not only allows the enormous plane to fly faster, but also take off and land on extremely short runways. 4 GE next-generation engines power it up to nearly Mach 1, making this the fastest passenger jet aircraft on Earth. But transforming this Colossus into Air Force One presents an enormous challenge. which rests on the shoulders of this man, Bob Fuchs.
A brand new 747 airplane. It's going to come with new technology, new capabilities that we're going to turn into something very presidential.
Bob is performing a last-minute inspection on the plane before she flies to San Antonio, Texas, where she will receive her military makeover.
So as you can imagine, most of the interior of the airplane is going to be transformed, but one of the things that we thought would be nice to stay with the airplane design was this staircase. It's quite different from the current Air Force One staircase, and we felt it'd be a good option to keep.
With the inspection complete, the pilots prepare for takeoff.
All looks good, everybody's happy, we're flying.
To become a military machine, this plane must defeat missiles, withstand nuclear radiation, serve as a flying White House, and provide secure communications for the president to run the country. When it lands at a high-security facility in Texas, its transformation into the most important plane in the world will begin. In San Antonio, Texas, the future Air Force One is joining her identical twin in a highly secure hangar. And National Geographic has special access to document their transformation into the next generation of Air Force One. Called Big Texas by some, the hangar has 24/7 surveillance and even odor-tracking K9 units. And it's the largest freestanding high bay hangar in the world. To create a plane like no other, mechanics like Sean Fisher must strip out the entire interior and jettison the overhead bins, restrooms, galleys, the air conditioning, and everything else.
There are a lot of modifications that are on schedule, and it's best to remove anything and everything until we are in the build stage, and then we'll put back what is needed and where it's needed. Getting ready for the next Air Force One.
Since the 1940s, the 7 different planes specifically designed to carry the president have each made history. Air Force One was born of war. President Franklin D. Roosevelt flew a Douglas C-54 Skymaster to the landmark Yalta Conference to establish peace at the end of World War II. The first Air Force One from the jet age was a long-range Boeing 707, and she also saw history made.
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
In 1963, after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Texas, Lyndon B. Johnson, on that very plane, became the first and only president to take the oath of office on board Air Force One.
President Johnson faces the burdens of office in days of foreign and domestic crises to keep burning the torch that has inspired a free world.
I will do my best. I ask for your help and God.
The legacy of the Kennedys lives on, etched in the hearts of every American, and also on Air Force One itself. Jacqueline Kennedy chose the outside colors on the Boeing 707, which are still used on today's 747 plane. And continuing the tradition, when the time came to create the interior of the current 747, First Lady Nancy Reagan helped design the presidential areas, including the bedroom.
We're going into the president's bedroom. In here we have 2 couches. Either can be converted into a bed, just like this one is over here. In the president's bedroom, we have all the seals on all of his items, the blanket, pillow. We have the stars in the carpet to symbolize the flying White House.
For the new Air Force One, President Trump suggested a more modern luxury look. Current designs include a queen bed in place of the fold-out single beds, a larger TV, and more room for seating.
Just walking through right now, inspecting all the ceilings, looking for any fingerprints or dirt. And right now we're walking into the president's bathroom, just double checking everything that's been cleaned. Looking at the mirrors for any streaks, chrome surfaces for any water spots or fingerprints. We'll even check the alignment of the towels. Everything looks good.
Though the plane's specific layout is restricted over security concerns, the chief flight attendant, Matt, lets us in on a little secret.
We always keep this door shut whenever that front door is open and the door 1L is open, just so to kind of keep the office sterile, if you will. So anytime the president comes on board, I stand here, I open the door, he comes in, and I shut the door behind him.
He does this to ensure the president always has privacy from prying eyes.
My job is also just to give a quick quality check of the office to make sure he has everything he needs. His glasses, his pens. These are the pens he uses to actually sign legislation into law. He likes to spend time up here taking care of business. One of the things we're looking forward to with the new airplane is just having all brand new equipment all around.
Back in San Antonio,
please take your seats.
The project team is planning a massive upgrade to the interior spaces on the new Air Force One. The presidential office, the medical bay, the president's conference room, and even the galley.
Please take your seats.
In San Antonio, the team is planning some bold designs that will make the new Air Force One a White House in the skies.
So first, I think the item that we'll want to talk about is the presidential office. The presidential office is similar to the Oval Office in the White House. So the office on board this aircraft is where many key decisions will be made. So Bob, some thoughts on how we can best leverage the extra space on the new aircraft?
It's going to be more modular so that when repairs need to be made, we can do that much easier, much quicker. It'll be a modern classic, but it'll be much more maintainable in the future.
In place of the cumbersome wood in the current office will be a modern modular design that could look like this, with all the latest digital technology. But as the future interior designs take shape, the engineering teams must overcome a significant hurdle.
Air Force One will consume so much more power than the commercial 747 that we need a bigger electrical power generator. So we're going to upgrade the generators in order to increase that power for our use on Air Force One.
Electricity on board the plane is produced by generators driven by the spinning turbines in the engines. To produce enough energy, the team must remove the engines so that larger generators can be added to power all the secret defense, communications, and navigation systems going in.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Made up of over 1 million parts,
Put your weight on, Chase.
each engine weighs in excess of 12,000 pounds. With a single engine costing $22 million, removing them requires precision and care. These 4 next-generation turbofans will lift a fully loaded Air Force One weighing 1 million pounds with ease. Providing the plane with 266,000 pounds of total thrust, the engines use 16% less fuel and give it a range of over 8,800 miles. Even if there's a catastrophic event, the new Air Force One will be safer and able to fly and land on just 2 engines.
It's a nice engine, 67,000 pounds of thrust, times 4, and then now with the chevrons to convolute the air and the sound coming out back, makes it a very quiet airplane.
Developed by Boeing and NASA, These sawtooth-shaped chevrons at the back of the engine smooth the mixing of air that's passed through the engine with air that's passed around it. This pioneering technology contributes to a 30% reduction in aircraft noise, which will provide a more tranquil environment for the president. Back on Air Force One, the staff is already excited by the new plane.
So as you can see, the airplane is antiquated, and this kitchen is antiquated. We've had a lot of updates with it, but one of the things we're looking forward to in the new airplane is actually having brand new equipment, and with that brand new equipment, hopefully being able to improve our customer service and take care of our passengers even better.
Guests of the president are often heads of state. When world peace is at stake, the flying White House needs to be impressive in every possible way. In place of these narrower and more constricted galleys, a range of designs like this are underway for 2 bigger state-of-the-art galleys. On an overseas trip, they'll be able to prepare up to 2,000 meals, with all foods sourced and loaded in the U.S. and served in 5-star VIP style.
Christine, can I get the boss's beverage, please?
Unfazed by the small space, the president's flight attendant, Christine, continues her service. Luckily, President Trump's tastes are straightforward.
The president actually likes normal American diet, anything that I guess anybody else would eat. He doesn't like anything, or he doesn't eat anything special, if that makes sense. Hamburgers or spaghetti. The First Lady is also kind of like the president, where they like regular food, like your regular American diet, honestly.
For Christine, serving the president on board Air Force One has been an honor steeped in history.
Hey, Daddy. How are you?
Roman setup.
The 41st President, George H.W. Bush, was the first to receive this very plane. In 1990, it was state-of-the-art.
Jeez, look at the size.
What happens on back here? Is this the 2 passages going back?
Yes, sir. On each side. And then we have the rear.
Everybody.
President Bush passed away on November 30th, 2018, in Houston, Texas. The crew of Air Force One took his remains to his funeral in Washington, D.C., and then back to Texas on the plane he loved so much. And Christine was there as a witness to history.
He came in head first, and then we made sure that his head was to the forward of the aircraft. And he stayed right there. The fact that President Bush was the first to receive this aircraft and that she was the one to take him to his final resting place is just very touching. Especially because his son, President 43, George W. Bush, was also on board, and he got to experience the final moments with his family.
Caring for their president is the primary duty of the staff. No one knows this better than Sean, physician to the president.
Generally, I try and see the president every day, and I take it as a personal charge, making sure that the president of the United States is healthy to carry on his duties wherever he is. But this current configuration of the medical bay aboard Air Force One, 29 years old, it wasn't built for the technology, the therapies, the equipment that have become standard of care across the nation, let alone for the president. And so we've had to piecemeal bring a lot of things on board to advance the therapy and care we have available at any given moment.
So, what can be done to care for the president in a life-threatening emergency at 40,000 feet? Air Force One is currently unable to provide the therapies available in many hospitals. But plans are being developed to modernize the new plane's medical bay. It will feature the latest medical technology, include an office area, and even be equipped for emergency surgical procedures. But as the president chooses his brand new design scheme for Air Force One's exterior, the most dramatic transformations are still in store. To make this possible, a legion of technicians must tread very carefully with classified plans as they work in front of the cameras.
The level of secrecy is pretty high. Yeah, I can say that, right?
To bring the most cutting-edge designs and military technologies into Air Force One, the team must overhaul every aspect of the plane. In San Antonio, mechanic Jacob Monita is preparing the flight deck for an all-digital interface and controls. His work is so secretive that National Geographic must work with the Department of Defense to make sure he doesn't reveal classified information.
You know, that aircraft that came from, I guess, a commodity facility, I can say that, right? We're gonna be removing some of the components from the flight deck. Everything's coming out. These control panels, these circuit breaker panels, all this wiring, it's all being replaced with new wiring.
With heavy metal shielding, the new wiring will withstand electromagnetic interference, allowing the plane to continue operating as the Flying White House, even in the event of a nearby nuclear explosion. But with over 1 million feet of new cable to install, Jacob's got his work cut out.
They don't tell us the small secrets of what we need to push or pull to install certain things. We're the first people to do it.
All right, Brett, you take the left seat there.
Okay.
All right, so welcome to the 747-8.
To prepare for the 747-8's all-digital cockpit, Deputy Presidential Pilot Brett is at Boeing Commercial Airline Headquarters in Seattle, training on the new Air Force One's flight simulator.
I am a pilot, but one of my additional responsibilities was to be part of the development of the next Air Force One.
In place of the dated analog cockpit, there's an array of digital displays. Sophisticated computer systems will assist with basic navigation and safety, reducing the flight crew from the existing 4 to just 2. They will be able to operate all the flight controls, defense, and navigation systems.
How's it feel?
Very stable aircraft. All right, so as we see Mount Rainier out the window here in the simulator, how does that display show up on this vertical profile?
So as you see, you've got the horizontal depiction there, and you can see the synthetic terrain features. And as the higher terrain is depicted in yellow and then red, so you're seeing the top of Mount Rainier there off to the side.
All right, first Dash 8 landing here.
The latest real-time digital displays and an improved instrument landing system mean the plane can land safely in the most challenging of weather conditions.
Gear down, flaps 20, runways in sight.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Speed brakes automatically come up, thrust reversers deployed, and we're slowing. Very nice.
Back on the current Air Force One, the pilots can't wait for this all-digital cockpit.
This is a joy to fly. There's a little bit more stick and throttle type flying, the sort of flying that we grew up with. The new airplane will have the latest capabilities, and so that's exciting for any pilot to fly.
We have a lot of things on here that a lot of people have no idea. They have no idea really what we have on this plane, and they're things that I can't talk about.
Military secrecy isn't all that's at stake. To install Air Force One's Vanguard defense systems, technicians must face down the riskiest part of the military makeover and literally cut the plane apart. One wrong move could cost millions.
You want it to be almost in a zero gravity state as you're going through the build.
to militarize this civilian plane and turn it into the flying fortress that will become Air Force One, the team must carry out a risky procedure, cutting into the aircraft's body. It's to prepare for the installation of top-secret defense and communications systems, and National Geographic has been granted special access to document it. First, they map out where exactly to cut into the fuselage. And what's been keeping them up at night are the two massive new presidential entrances. Getting big cuts like these wrong and the damage to the plane could be very costly.
The first major activity as we begin the modification will be to cut two large sections out of the aircraft, both at the rear and at the front. These sections will be replaced with new sections containing both new doors and air stairs that allow entry of the president and passengers as well as exit.
As on the existing Air Force One, it's a security requirement that the president, guests, and crew be able to disembark, if necessary, using internal stairs. Even stripped of its engines and components, this behemoth aircraft still weighs a staggering 350,000 pounds. Any cuts into the fuselage could result in it bending, causing serious misalignment. To avoid this disaster, manufacturing manager Todd Carlson is working with a one-of-a-kind cradle to relieve the stress on the plane.
To prepare the next Air Force One for some of the major changes that are becoming, we want to make sure that we have the aircraft jacked and off the ground, as you can see with the wheels turning. And also we've got these yellow braces all along the belly of the aircraft from nose to tail, wing to wing. You want it to be almost in a zero gravity state as you're going through the build.
This custom-built cradle uses a sophisticated hydraulic system that renders even this Goliath plane effectively weightless. The smallest change in weight is counterbalanced through adjustments in each hydraulic piston.
We'll monitor our weights. As you can see, this one jumps a little bit as people are coming in and off the aircraft. We'll monitor those to make sure that we're staying within our range, and when we go to make our big cuts in the aircraft, that the aircraft is properly supported, it's not going to twist, it's not going to bend.
With all the groundwork in place, the team is on pins and needles as they get ready to make the first big cuts. Before installing the doors and the air stairs, technicians carry on with the military makeover, cutting 68 smaller holes to load in the advanced communications and air defense systems. Back on the current Air Force One,
Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1.
Communications Officer Kaz is looking forward to the upgrade.
So a lot of the times they'll come up with something new. You know, the president wants to use a tablet or something new that this airplane wasn't designed for 30 years ago, and they had no idea that that could be a possibility. So we're always constantly trying to think on the fly and come up with how we connect a brand new iPad to old wiring.
Though the details are highly classified, the planes will include the most sophisticated encryption for secure communication that directly connect to the White House at all times. And the president will be able to address the nation live.
So it's a new airplane. We're actually going to move from 3 operators to 4, which will be nice. We'll have more people to be able to handle the phone calls and to talk with throughout the flight. So for the president, we make a lot of head of state calls. So to other presidents and national leaders throughout the world, that is probably one of the more high-stress moments of the job.
Just how important effective communication can be for the president on Air Force One became painfully clear one fateful day in 2001. During the 9/11 attacks, President George W. Bush was in Florida. His security team quickly rushed him to the safest place he could be, on board the flying fortress that is Air Force One.
There were rumors that the White House was going to be under attack, and it became quickly apparent that this was going to be the place from which the commander-in-chief was going to have to, one, figure out what had happened, two, are there any more attacks, and three, how to make sure that the country responds to the immediate crisis as best as a president can do.
But the communications networks were oversaturated, and President Bush was unable to address the nation.
One of the really interesting lessons from this whole experience was that Air Force One was not properly equipped to be able to deal with the crisis. There were phones, but I couldn't find people. There were meetings, but it was difficult to get in to the meetings. In other words, the equipment just wasn't as good as it could have been.
Although the communication system has since been improved, the next generation plane will take it to a whole new level.
Now, Air Force One is different than other 747s that are like private or built in a luxury manner because we have so much military equipment and other things on, equipment that I don't even talk about.
Exactly how the new Air Force One will defend itself remains a closely guarded secret. But experts believe it will use decoy burning flares to deflect heat-seeking missiles. And that the plane will use high-tech lasers not only to disable a guided missile's tracking system, but even to completely destroy missiles in flight.
So without saying too much, the president is always well defended. The safety and security of the president is always a consideration on this Air Force One and the next Air Force One. It's about all I can say on that.
One secret that can be revealed is President Trump's final decision on the dramatic new exterior design.
Please take your seats.
Which will transform the next generation of Air Force One into an icon.
We're changing the coloring system. I think it's a stronger system. It's actually more beautiful.
In San Antonio, the team's finishing up its review of possible designs for interiors on this new stately icon.
Similar to a cabinet room in the White House, where the president holds key meetings with his cabinet or his senior leadership, the conference room in the aircraft is a key space.
We're going to be improving with modern electronics, larger displays, the ability for the staff to use personal electronic devices so that all the information that they need is readily available.
As a proxy for the cabinet room in the West Wing, Air Force One's conference room will get a dramatic facelift. And this is what it could look like. The larger windows of the 747-8 will illuminate its bigger space and modern look. Armed with high-tech communications, it will also serve as a situation room.
Bob, can you talk about what we're doing with the galleys on the new Air Force One?
The new galleys, both front and back, will be much larger, much more efficient workspace, well planned out, modern technologies.
Expanding on these restricted galleys will be two big kitchen areas, almost double the size. With designs like this, modeled on the very latest VIP luxury jets, they'll have all the equipment needed, not just to reheat prepared meals, but also to cook fresh food. In a dramatic upgrade from the 30-year-old medical technology, the new high-tech ER will be much bigger. 3D modeling envisions a surgical table with equipment able to handle dire medical emergencies, from strokes to assassination attempts. Cutting-edge health monitors and a large pharmacy will deal with practically any health emergency facing the president, his guests, or staff. And though Nancy Reagan's Southwestern designs will go, the stylish new bedroom will feel more spacious with a touch of five-star comfort, accessible only to the president, first lady, security detail, and chief flight attendant. But the presidential stars on the carpet will remain. The wooden look of the current office will be modified into a much more modern, modular office. As the airborne Oval Office, it's from here the president will address the nation. But the most visible transformation could be to the exterior of Air Force One. President Trump decided to move away from the 1962 colors that are still used today. Originally chosen by First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy, the plane's color was her favorite shade of blue.
The coloring system was that way for a long time. It's baby blue. Now we have I think it's a stronger system, and it's red, white, and blue, but it's the color blue on the American flag, which is a darker color. We have a plane that will represent us for a long time and very well.
Though the plane's trademark lettering will remain the same, the president considered 4 different color schemes: a choice of blue or white engines, and gray or white center lines. This is President Trump's preferred choice. With modification, testing, and extended support, her total cost is expected to be $5.3 billion. But as a symbol of a nation, some believe these efforts to create a bold new flying White House are worth every penny.
I view this as something to do with legacy. Every time I look at it, I'll say, I had a lot to do with it. Just really a representation of our great country.
Air Force One has safely completed her mission and returns home to Joint Base Andrews in Maryland.
Right now we're towing the jet in, just doing a rollover pod check. We're looking for any debris or anything that might have got stuck in the tires before we park in its final position.
Everybody's going to miss this aircraft. We all have a lot of experiences with this aircraft, some great trips we've been on, some good missions, and it's been great to be part of a lot of historical events that have happened around the world and the country. It would be really nice to bring the new jet online and watch that take over as the new Air Force One and carry the president around the world.
I guess in a way it's become my little baby, to where I'm very familiar with everything and where everything is located and how she functions, and I'm just gonna miss this jet so much.
Once the militarized planes are ready to take to the skies, they will be flight tested for 2 full years.
What can we do with the next flying White House with a larger airplane and the latest technology? I think it's a good prospect for the nation and for the next president.
Work on the 2 planes will continue under President Biden's administration. And though some design elements may change, in 2024, the next generation Air Force One will be delivered to the nation.